Shush. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us tonight on episode 3, season 4 of the Standoff with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. We're here live every Wednesday on Facebook throughout the season. But the season's getting underway tomorrow night, Richie. You're looking forward to the NRL finally being back?
Absolutely, Brad. Hope your week and weekend just gone and been good. Yeah.
Looking forward to the Storm. I won't bother saying hello to you, Richie, or asking how you are. We'll just throw you straight in with a question. I mean, all the niceties.
Yeah, I know.
There you go, Brad. Yeah, good mate.
Footy's back. Footy's back. I don't want to talk about, people's lives. We've got football to talk about.
But yeah, the Eels Storm game coming up tomorrow night, and that should be a massive one. And of course, Friday. Can't wait to see you down here, mate, and we can get into it.
Yeah, definitely. So while we're here live on Wednesday evenings, 8 p.m., you can also catch our show via our podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, all those places. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. As always, we're going to cover everything you need to know in the week that was rugby league, including our top stories of the week, our round 1 preview, and we make our first picks for the year, Richie. Yeah. We'll then stop and answer some questions from you guys, as well as some questions we've got for each other, before closing out the show with a look at the Super League. So another meant to be short episode, but we know what we're like, Richie. It won't be short. But so yeah, remember to send us comments and questions throughout the show, and we may as well just jump straight into it.
Yep, sounds good.
So the first one's quite a big one. It takes up a whole little page on my notes here, but after our show last week, the Warriors announced their intentions to expand their pathways by fielding 5 teams from 2024, with a 6th team to follow in 2025. They've approached the New South Wales Rugby League about adding teams to the Jersey Flag, which is under 21s for people that don't know. Harold Matthews Cup, which is under 17s, alongside the current sides that they have in the NRL, the New South Wales Cup, which is obviously reserve grade, and the SG Ball, which is under 19s. And then, for 2025, they want to get a women's team back in the NRLW. I've got a quote from Cameron George, so I'll just rattle through that before we discuss it, because it's quite a lot. So Cameron George, the Warriors CEO, he said, this is the next major step forward in resetting the club after being away from home for 3 years. From having no development teams, just the NRL side, we're now aiming to have a total of 5 teams next year and 6 from 2025. Historically, it's the biggest investment in development and pathways we've ever had. It also aligns perfectly with our strategic partnership with Pacifica Aotearoa Collective. We're going back to where we always wanted to be, which is striving to become the best development club we can be. So a lot of that there, but what's your take on the news, and how do you feel about it?
I think it's great that they're pushing so hard to have such a development culture, I guess you could say. Sorry, Paul, I know we have a bad habit sometimes of plugging other podcasts, but I was driving to work today. I was listening to the What a Lad podcast, and James Marshall had on Elijah Taylor, and he was talking about the period where we had the Warriors in the grand final 2011, the reserve grade side, and the under 20 side in the grand final, and how much of a development club we were when Ivan was here. And you look at the SG Ball side and how they've started. It just shows the talent we have in the young grades coming up. And I think if we get a real good pathway set up, I think it's only a matter of time before we start seeing some payoff in the top grades, hopefully.
Yeah, and I'll continue your trend on talking about other podcasts. So Fonzie has talked about it on about just the pathway in general. If at the moment you've got SG Ball, which is under 19s, then reserve grade and top side, you've got kids that when they hit 20, they have nowhere to go because they might not be good enough for reserve grade or top side. And then they'll get Australian teams will come over and say, well, we've got Jersey Flag. So you can come sign with us, play Jersey Flag, and we'll have you ready for reserve grade and first grade before you know it. So, and yeah, we've got a comment saying the SG Ball squad, 60% of them played Auckland first 15 for school. Yeah, so they're trying their best to get as much talent as they can from where they can. And I saw Paul put a question up saying, Are these all New Zealand-based teams that we're playing in Australian competitions? Yes, so it's the same model as what the Warriors top side have got, Paul. So they're based here, but they go to Australia like every second week to play. Like I think due to the flooding, the first SG Ball home game got cancelled, but last week they had their first game on New Zealand soil playing in Pukekohe. And yeah, they're going really well. And yeah, investment by in or out of fly teams over here. Yeah, I'm not sure how the flight thing works. If the Warriors are paying out of pocket for that or not, I don't know. Robbo doesn't return my calls, so I've never been able to ask the question. But I think it's great for the long term. You know, it's all these young guys, like you said, Richie. Though you go back to that last grand final appearance where they had all three teams in the grand finals. That was kind of the moment where things should have been starting to blossom.
Absolutely.
And it didn't because a certain CEO at the time decided to let a coach go. But yeah, that's neither here or there. But at least it's showing that they got their eyes on the long-term gains that this should be. And it's essentially what every NRL club should be trying to do. Even if you want to go to the brass tacks about it, if you have a kid that you've developed all that time, you get him to first grade, odds are you're going to be paying him less than what you would if you had to get someone from overseas. That's why the Panthers have all those players. And now they're losing a lot of those players because now they're getting paid what they probably would have been getting paid if they left earlier. So because you can get them on that first deal at a cheaper deal, it's going to be better for you. And yeah, like I said, there's no genuine pathway in the Warrior system. That's what they're starting to do now. So it's going to take time. But yeah, at the moment, take the best players you can from wherever you get them. Anything else you want to add before we move on, Richie?
No, let's keep going, buddy.
All right. Not a lot of news, to be honest. I thought there'd be a lot more coming into the first week. But John Bateman, who we talked about last week, he's finally arrived at the Tigers. He's not going to play this week for obvious reasons of just kind of getting there and getting into knowing who his teammates are. So we'll probably see him earliest would be next week, but I'd say probably round 3 or 4, you'll see Bateman come into the side. Thoughts on Bateman? You think he's going to hit the ground running like he did last time, or will it take a bit of time?
It may do, but I hope for the Tigers' sake he comes in and makes an impact pretty quickly. You know, what we've seen from the Tigers the past couple of years has been pretty dismal. I think even the heartiest of Tigers fans would admit that. Haven't been hitting their traditional mark of 9th place. So, yeah, I'm sure a fully fit and firing Bateman will help a lot. Do you think he'll be homesick by the 3rd round, Simon says? I hope not. I hope he's here going to stick it out this time.
Yeah, we'll see. I think COVID had a bit to play a part in that before. I think now the fact that you could hop on a plane and go, maybe, but we'll see. It depends how good the Tigers actually go. If the Tigers are going really bad, he might get homesick quicker. And so, Jacko said Tigers are chasing the Pommy half who played for the Raiders as well. Yeah. I can't even remember his last name now. Got the big beak. George Williams, right?
Yeah, Georgie.
I see Hammer's here. Evening Hammer and Hammer Rua got a show happening very soon. So I'm sure he's not going to be here for long. Interviewing Andrew McFadden tonight. Great thing to watch after our show's finished. Please don't leave us early. But I think Bateman's going to be fine. But kind of segueing into a former Warrior, Todd Payton has had his contract extended until the end of 2026. What do you think of that? I think it's kind of a simple decision. The Cowboys are clearly showing that they're heading in the right direction with him at the helm. So I feel like giving him another 3 years right now is probably a good form of faith from the head office there. And he hasn't really done anything to make you waver in thinking he's going to do the right job. So I think it's well done for him. But what's your thoughts on Payton getting extended?
Oh, yeah, no brainer in my books. From what he's done as soon as he's come on board as a first grade coach, first with the Warriors, then with the with the Cowboys. He's shown he can turn teams around and have an impact quickly. So no-brainer, I think having him there for another few years can only help the Cowboys.
Definitely. And then the Dolphins, after me saying that they're not going to be signing anyone, they have stolen 2 from the Broncos in one foul swoop. They signed Herbie Farnworth on a 3-year deal and Tom Flegler on a 4-year deal, both starting in 2024. But not bad signings for them. Herbie, I think, has got a lot of promise, but he just hasn't really been able to do it at the Broncos. He's been stuck behind a few players, had some injuries, but I think he's definitely a good signing. And Tom Flegler is just oozing potential. I'm a big fan of him. I would have loved a player like that to make his way across the Tasman.
You would be a fan of him because he's a front row and he's a bit of a grub. So
ticks all my boxes.
He does tick all your boxes. But yeah, I think that's good recruitment from the Dolphins and a bit of a hit for the Broncos. Flegler's, he's, like you say, a lot of potential. I think he'll be in the Queensland squad for a while to come.
Definitely.
And Herbie Farnworth, when he's been fit, he's shown with the Broncos, he knows his way to the try line. He probably was almost more consistent than Tony Staggs on the other side.
Yeah.
In most cases. So I think that's good pickups there for the Dolphins.
Definitely. And Simon's mentioned, he said how impressive it is for the Dolphins to have sold 14,000 memberships. That's a good start for the club. Yeah. All the struggles they're going through, I still put the majority of the fault on the NRL for how little time they gave them to get everything up and running. But it's impressive to see the backing they've got. It's great. I'm just hopeful that they I don't see them having a great season, but as long as they're not a laughing stock, which I don't think they will be, I think Wayne Bennett will get them to be competitive. It's just the stock they've got isn't as good as it could be. But that's going to come. I feel like it's all about 2024 and on. I think this is just getting some runs on the board this year for the Dolphins and getting people into it, seeing what they've got to hopefully lure some big names there for next year. But speaking of...
If we have big crowds like that and maybe, as you say, haven't got the cattle, so might be losing quite a few games, the match day experience is going to be important. So let's hope they put a big effort into that as well.
Yeah, hopefully. And then we've got another one, Spencer Leniu from the Panthers. He's leaving the Panthers at the end of the year, and it isn't confirmed, but it seems all but guaranteed that he's going to be another player that ends up at the Roosters. What's your take on him leaving and going to the Roosters of all clubs?
We're seeing a few start to leave the Panthers now, and I think that's just the reality of all the success, and players' values go up and some get squeezed out due to salary cap, but then the irony of that is they tend to go to the Roosters, who seem to have no cap.
Yeah.
But if that's the case and he ends up at the Roosters, we know the Roosters are looking for that next prop coming through that will probably, it's their plan for life after Jared Waerea-Hargreaves, and Spencer Leniu I would have loved him to come here. He's a big, intimidating, scary sort of front rower. Would have been great to bring here, but I'm sure it fit right in at the Roosters.
Yeah. I'm not as Rooster sombrero conspiracy theorist with this news as I have with others, just due to the fact that Hargreaves, this is going to be his last year.
Yeah.
What he's on is going to be more than what Leniu's on. So it's a straight swap, and they've still got money in the bank in that scenario. Some of the others I don't. Kay just said, can you find us on YouTube? Yes, it's under New Zealand Sport Radio, isn't it, Paul? That's a question for you.
New Zealand Sport Radio channel.
Yeah.
There we go. We're plugging Paul's channel rather than other shows.
Yeah.
I think what the one actually that broadcasts you. I mean, wow.
But yeah, and we had a comment in there saying the Roosters trying to cheat the salary cap again. My question is actually in relation to that, so we'll avoid that bit for a little bit more because that's what I'm asking Richard about the salary cap. So,
also they're looking at looking for salary cap relief after.
Yes.
So is that part of the question, or shall I? Or do you want to?
No. That's not. Yeah, they want salary cap relief for Angus Crichton. Who did we mention that Angus Crichton's taking leave? Richie, I can't recall if we did.
I can't recall if we did either. It was a big week last week.
Yeah, so Angus Crichton, for personal reasons, is taking a step back from footy. They haven't really said how long, so it could be a couple of weeks, couple of months, could be the whole season. We're not sure. So yeah, the Roosters have asked.
According to sources that I have at the or reading from the Sydney Morning Herald, it looks like at least the first 10 weeks. And he's been checked into a treatment facility for bipolar disorder, apparently, allegedly.
Yeah.
Look, thoughts with him. But I must admit, do you think that people like Stephen Fry, etc., have come out saying they've got like bipolar? You can clearly have a very productive, active, whatever life once you got it under control. So let's hope he does so.
Yeah. Hopefully it all works out for him. In terms of getting the cap relief, I'm not sure because of who's asking. I feel like it would be different. Like the Panthers are apparently going to apply for it for Taylor May being out for the whole year. And that I'm okay with. But the Roosters, we always talk about the Roosters having all this money and not having a cap. So to ask for some money back, kind of, I don't know. Yeah, what do you reckon, Richie? I feel like I'll say something that will get us in trouble.
I can kind of understand it. Look at it. Put that same situation against any other team other than the Roosters, and there probably wouldn't be much said about it.
So look, he's apparently on 750k. So he's kind of an expensive player. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But it's normally reserved for when people get hurt during rep rugby, or it's career ending, which this is neither of those. So yes, it's an injury, or no, it's not really an injury. It's because it's not concussion. But so it'll be interesting to see which way they go with it. But with head injuries and stuff being more of a getting and mental health being a much higher profile, you can see why they might do it because it's kind of the right thing to do from that point of view.
Yeah, just them throwing money around trying to get Dominic Young early and things like that. It shows that they obviously have some room in the cap already, apparently. So I'm not sure. I'm sure they will because but just on the media point of view, if the NRL came out and said, no, we're not helping you with someone that's gone away from the game with mental illness, especially with all the drive they've been doing about mental illness and trying to help people, they painted themselves into a corner in that regard where you can't say that you're all for promoting trying to help people with mental illness and then not help, if you get my drift. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, indeed.
All right, so before we go into the reviews, we finally got I decided to bring Casualty Ward back.
We've got one more news item you've not sort of touched on.
What news is that?
About rainbow jerseys, and so Josh Aloi has said he likes the idea that of having a respect round. Apparently, now I'm not quite sure how that differs from a rainbow round, that's which was kind of respect. So yeah, looks like we're already painting themselves, already kind of heading into dodgy waters, and are we going to see players accusations of not respecting, but then or not being inclusive, and then players players banning? We'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see. I don't know if they're going to touch it with a 10-foot pole due to what happened to the Seagulls after that, and going on a huge losing streak. So yeah, I don't see it happening this year at least. I think they're going to wait till the smoke's cleared a little bit before they broach the subject again. But who knows? It depends what side of the bed Peter V'landys gets out on the day.
Yeah, very much so.
So yeah, casualty ward. It's actually quite interesting here. A lot of people hurt their calves. Basically, everyone on my list is a calf injury. But the big one was yesterday. Bulldog Luke Thompson. He's facing 6 months recovery after injuring his ankle at training. Big loss for them. He's kind of been a bit injury prone since he joined the Dogs, but they need him up front. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But Nico Hines from the Sharks, he's missing this week due to a calf strain. Josh Papali'i from the Raiders is also out of week 1 with a calf strain. Josh Schuster from the Seagulls is another player missing round 1 with a calf strain. And then Dane Gagai is out for the Knights with a hamstring strain. No word on if he'll be back for round 2 or if it's going to be longer. But yeah, what's your take on all the calf injuries? So I suppose it's a bit different from all the ACLs we had last year.
It just must be nice to have some calves to injure. Wouldn't know, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to hit them hard.
Yeah. need to do some more calf exercises.
Yeah. So hopefully we don't get too many injuries. Like casualty ward was kind of a big thing last year on our show because there's always at least a handful of them. So hopefully we don't get too many. But as always, as the season goes on, we'll keep you up to date with any new injuries and returns. So that was really all I had for news. So we're trying something a little bit different. Richard mentioned it to me that he each week when we do the previews, we kind of just say the game and who we pick. But due to us being Warriors fans, we're actually going to do a little bit more of a discussion about the Warriors game of that week. So I've got a picture, if Paul has still got it, where I did a quick run up of the team. I'm not sure how great it is to look at. I'll work on it. But
okay.
So yeah, the Warriors are playing the Knights in Wellington in Richard's home turf, 8:00 on Friday night. As we've mentioned on the show before, I'm heading down and me and Richie are going to go watch the game live. But we've got, I'll let you say who the Warriors team is if you want, Richie.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll do the Knights.
Yeah, look, I always get super excited for team naming Tuesday, so I thought it might be cool to bring along to the standoff and share the excitement a bit, or lack of excitement in some cases. So,
yes.
The team for this week named on Tuesday was number 1, CNK, number 2, Dylan Martinez-Lesniak. The centre pairing is Braden Viliami and Adam Pompey. Number 5, Marcelo Montoya. Halves pairing, Timari Martin and Sean Johnson. Adam Fanua-Blake, Wade Egan, and Mitch Barnett in the front row. Jackson Ford, I think, gets rewarded for his preseason form. It's a start at 11. Marata Niokore, number 12. Tohu Harris, captain, and number 13. Interchange bench, 14, Dylan Walker. Bunty for number 15. 16, Josh Curran. And the bench is rounded out by Tom Marley. Thoughts, Brad?
Yep. Yeah, I did my season preview earlier this week, and I picked who I would have as my round 1 team, and it was pretty close. There was one switch with players, which I had Viliami Valia in for Adam Pompey. And then the others were positional changes. I moved Tohu Harris to my front row. I moved Mitchell Barnett to my second row, and I moved Josh Curran to my lock. But yeah, I don't mind any. Jacko's mentioned, he says he doesn't get why the best centre in the club by quite a margin is starting from the bench as a utility, but it is what it is. Yeah. Right now, to be honest, I had Valia because I like Valia and I liked what I saw from Braden Viliami and Montoya together. So I picked them as my centres. But yeah, Dylan Walker is, an international centre in his time. But so for that matter, his chance. So I could see Dylan there. They obviously are seeing something different. We won't know till they get out on the field, as the cliche goes. But overall, bar the Pompey thing, I'm not too fazed about the team. The Pompey thing isn't personal. I just feel that he isn't a centre. he doesn't like to pass the ball. I think he's a fantastic winger when he's on his day, but I don't see him as a centre. So that's the change I would make. I listened to an interview, Richie. I don't know if you heard it, but there's an interview with Andrew Webster about the team, and he said that Pompey's been training the house down, and that's a thing we don't get to see as fans.
Yeah.
We don't see every day if someone's really working hard at training and someone's taking the easy route and like cutting corners. And a decision like that, and Jacko said Villiers should start way before Pompey, but Villiers, he might be injured. Maybe he's cutting corners and taking it easy at training, and this is a punishment. We don't know. But yeah, it's an interesting hit out. What did you reckon?
Much the same. I scratched my head a bit when I looked at the centre pairing. I'm fine with Braden Viliami because I thought he showed some signs, particularly in the first trial. But Pompey, I don't know that I've ever been a massive fan of him in the centres. I would have gone Villiers as well. Going back to Jacko's point, I'm fine with Dylan Walker at 14. I think he's shown the past couple of years for Manly he's been really good in that role. Although I see the flip side where if you throw him in at centre, it opens up a bench spot, which could be filled by Metcalf. Obviously can't be at the moment. So I think I'm happy enough with Walker at 14. I just would have had Villiers at 4.
Yeah, so before we talk about the actual game itself, I'll run down the Knights team. And yeah, Jacko's mentioned Williami wasn't that great in the second trial.
He wasn't, I agree.
And Mark Roberts has said you can see that they want the defence in the centres. He was 10% higher tackle effectiveness than Villiers last year. Walker hasn't played centre for at least 3 seasons now. Yeah, that's true as well. And Pompey's a better defender at the centres than Villiers, that's for sure. And if we can remember the last game against the Knights, he had a field day against Dane Gagai. It was probably one of his better games at centre. But it depends. I don't know if he's marking. I always get confused with the Warriors numbers because they always seem to be out of position than what the numbers suggest. So I don't know if he's marking Bradman Best or not. But whichever one of the two is marking Bradman Best, they're in for a busy night. But yeah, the Knights team, we've got at fullback, they've got Lachlan Miller. On the wings, they've got Himmel Hunt and Dominic Young. Then centres, they got Inari Tuala and Bradman Best. In the halves, they got Kalen Ponga and Jackson Hastings. Front row, they got the Safiti brothers and Jaden Brayley. Then they got a pretty impressive second row combination of Tyson Frizzell, Lachlan Fitzgibbon, and then Kurt Mann at lock. And then the interchange, they got Phoenix Crossland, Adam Elliott, Jack Hetherington, and Leo Thompson. When I saw the Knights team, Richie, I was actually a lot more concerned than I was prior to team naming. I kind of went, it's the Knights, it's fine. And then I saw that team and went, that's actually not a bad team. I was on, so we'll piss Paul off again. I was on a show with Hold the Ball last night, and we talked about the this game and the team, and I said I see a lot of similarities kind of between the halves of these teams. You've got Tamari Martin and Jackson Hastings, which you kind of know what they're going to do. And then you've got the more X factor in Ponga and Sean. And the winner of this game could be down to whichever one has a better game out of those two. There's more elements than that, but I was just trying to break it down. If Ponga has a good game, he's been a bit patchy playing in the halves.
Yeah.
If he's on, it's going to be very tough. And then on the same token, if Sean does a 180 from what we saw in that last trial and brings a bit more control to the game, then it could be fine. It all, as always, as all games should be, it basically is all down to the guys up front. But that there is going to be hard too, because I'm still not sold on Barnett as a front rower. But what's your take on the team? And then we may as well jump into what we actually think is going to happen with this game.
I think if Ponga goes well in the halves this time around, I think that's a nice looking spine. They've got an exciting looking spine they've got building. Lockie Miller looked exciting in what limited times we saw him playing last year. Hastings, we know what what he can do. So if he's the right fit to partner Kalen and let Kalen express himself a bit more, and Jackson can be that solid playmaker and playmaker that leads the team around, which I think that role fits him really well.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. Written down on paper, it looks a little more intimidating when you see it written down. But hopefully we're on our game. We've also seen Bradman Best give us a bath in the past couple of years as well. So I'm hoping the centers are switched on.
Yeah. So what do you reckon? I've picked the Warriors. I think it was flip a coin moment. I've basically gone. It's in Auckland. Oh, not in Auckland. It's in New Zealand. Sorry. And the Knights haven't had a good track record in New Zealand. I don't have the official stat, but I think it was like 2 of their last 12 games in New Zealand they've won. And the Warriors have a habit of going win-loss in first round. So they lost in the first round last year, which means they're due a win this year. Which is, that's the most sophisticated way of predicting a game I can do. But what do you reckon?
I've got no sophisticated way of tipping games. I pretty much, just take a guess. But I think Warriors as well. Extremely biased, of course. But yeah, homegrown advantage. And just me being extremely hopeful, because I think this is a 50-50 game, I think, when you look at both teams with new members of the spine. So there should be a period of both teams getting used to playing with each other.
Yeah.
There you go, Richie. I thought you were about to say, I think this is our year. That was what you were going to say.
Oh yeah, I've exhausted that saying throughout the years. So
yeah, and Mark Roberts has said 13 plus to the Warriors. Ponga's only had 40 minutes of game time. The Knights have the walking suspension on their bench in the 16.
Hope you're right, mate. Hope you're right.
I'm actually hopeful too, because when we were on Ruin Ham's show last week, plug again, we did the 23 predictions, and one of my predictions was that Jack Hetherington would be sin-binned in his debut game for the Knights. So I need him to get a sin-bin in this to get that prediction ticked. And yeah, Jacko mentioned, the Aucklanders wanted a concert in Auckland, which is why they're playing in Wellington. I think it's good. For people like you, Richie, what's it going to be like? This is the first live game you've got to go to since before COVID.
I'm absolutely fizzing, mate. I'm fizzing. Can't wait.
Yeah. So it's it's going to be great. The last time we got to go to a game in Wellington was the last game they played there in 2019, Sharks. I think it was. Yeah, against the Sharks.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time, and I'm looking forward to the 7-hour drive that I'm doing on Friday morning. But I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm hoping that it's going to be a great result for the team. I think nothing worse than driving all that way for a loss, which I think is what I said to you in 2019 when we did the trip. But yeah, it's going to be great. And yeah, Mikey said time for some faith again. I'm being a bit more settled this year.
The faith is in there somewhere, Mikey.
It is, yeah. I wouldn't be driving 8 hours if I thought this was a useless team that's going to be rubbish.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and hopefully they give us something really good to talk about next week, Richie.
Have you checked that the roads haven't all been washed out and you actually can get to Wellington now?
I'll get there some way, Paul. Nothing stops me from going to a Warriors game. So
here we go. So Brad's planes, trains, and automobiles story we're going to have next week.
Yeah, if I get stuck somewhere, I'm sure I'll put it up on Facebook on my little journey. But we may as well go over the rest of the games before we move on. So I gave you another picture if you got it there, Paul, of the fixtures. There we go. So we've already picked it. Simon, I don't know if you wanted to do tips again with us, but if you
Come on, Simon.
Write them down and I'll keep track of them again like I did last year. But first up, obviously tomorrow we've got the Eels versus Storm. I myself have gone with the Storm. I just think every time I picked the Eels last year, they did me dirty. So I'm avoiding them as much as I can. And it's the Storm.
they're going to do you dirty this time, Brad, because you obviously haven't looked at the recent form between these two teams.
Mate,
Did you ever peek at that? I'm going Eels.
You're going Eels? Yeah, I don't care about the past, mate. It's all about the present. And then we've already picked both of us the Warriors on the next game.
Yeah.
The second game on Friday night is the Panthers Broncos. I've gone with the Panthers. I think they're a better side than the Broncos, and I think they'll be hurting from losing to St. Helens.
Yeah, Panthers. Come on, Mark. What kind of comment is that?
Honestly, some people. First game on the super sad day is Seagulls Bulldogs. I've gone with Seagulls because Turbo's back.
Turbo to pull a hammy early, Bulldogs with the win.
Yeah, and Simon's given me, he's gone for the Storm and the Warriors. Yeah, and we'll talk about that at the end. Mark, who said my favorite team's got a bye this week. Yeah, so you're going with, did you say you went Bulldogs? So
yeah,
okay, you're buying into the hype a little bit early, but okay. Second game on Saturday, we've got Cowboys Raiders. I've gone with Cowboys. Sorry, Simon. I think the Cowboys are building something, and the Raiders haven't really impressed me much in the trials, so I have to give the Cowboys the edge at home.
Yeah, sorry, Simon. I've gone Cowboys too. Home game for Cowboys as well.
Then the final game on Saturday is Sharks Rabbits. I've gone with the Rabbits because Nico's not playing for the Sharks.
Yep, same for the same reason.
Yeah, I had Sharks, as we know from our prediction show. I had the Sharks winning everything. So the moment the Golden Boy went off, I was in trouble. Then the first game on Sunday is the Dolphins versus the Roosters. In a game I'm sure a lot of people are going to be watching for the Dolphins' first official game. I've gone with the Roosters, though. I think the Roosters' side's too strong. So I think the Roosters are going to be the first team to disappoint the Dolphins.
Yeah, yes, I think so too. Roosters.
Oh, and Simon is gone Raiders and Seagulls. So I'm just writing them down in my little handy-dandy notebook. And then the last game is Tigers-Titans. I've gone with Tigers.
Yeah.
I think the Tigers have got a good team compared to what they've had. They're at home, and the Titans, I feel like they haven't really done much in the off-season to make themselves any better.
Yeah.
So it was always going to be a flip of the coin game for me. But I think with Api Carousel and all those guys coming into the Tigers, they've got the edge.
It feels really weird picking the Tigers to win.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tip them as well. Wasn't it the last time these two teams played? It was one of the most boring games of recent memory, wasn't it? It was like super low scoring, wasn't it?
It was like
6-6 at one point, and then it was one late.
Something disastrous.
Hopefully, it's not like that.
Is this in Benji we trust as he starts his coaching career?
Maybe. So Simon's gone Dolphins and Titans. Who did you go for? Sharks Rabbitohs, Simon? We haven't got that one. So while we're waiting for him there, we'll talk about the best game of the week, Richie. The Dragons. They have got the bye, which means we don't have to watch any Dragon games.
But they pick up the 2 points, though.
They do, unfortunately, but it is what it is. Next, talking about, I do. I got this little notebook. It's got all of our tips from last season in it as well. It's the only way I can make sure it's all here and I'm not cheating. But yeah, okay. And Simon's given us Rabbitohs. Okay, so looking at it, Simon and myself both went for the Storm. You went with the Eels. All three of us went for the Warriors. All three of us went for the Panthers. Simon and me went for Seagulls. You went with Bulldogs. You and I went Cowboys. He went Raiders. All three again on the Rabbits. Me and you on the Roosters. Simon on the Dolphins. And then you and me on Tigers. Simon on the Titans. So at least we'll know there will be... and Mark said hopefully Brad focuses more on his picks than fantasy team. I am hopeless at fantasy. I'm still trying to figure out what my team's actually going to be, Mark. So, my tips are always better. You get a 50-50 shot. So, yeah, cool picks. I'll tally them all up at the end of the round, and we'll have our pretty picture for next week on who's ahead in the leaderboard. Now we'll go to questions. So, were there any questions that we didn't already answer, Paul?
No, just mine. Actually, I'm going to ask you, what do you think about this odd number of teams and having a team having a bye? Do you think it's a good idea, or should they have added two new teams rather than just one?
I think at the time it's fine because I don't think they would have been able to get two up and running. I don't like it on a fantasy point of view where you've got to now every week there's going to be a team missing out, which if you've got a lot more players of one team than another, you're going to get punished for it. So yeah, I don't like it. I'd rather there be an even number of teams, but I understand the reasons why they didn't. Like they dicked around with the Dolphins. Imagine if you added another team at the same time, and the fact that the Dolphins couldn't get a lot of the players that they wanted. You imagine two teams trying to get a whole roster. It just wouldn't have worked. So yeah, what do you reckon, Richie?
Yeah, that is what it is. You're exactly right about putting two extra teams in and finding enough quality players to form two competitive new rosters. So it would have been tricky for sure. But I know down the line the NRL want to do it and they will do it. So I just hope whoever the new team is has a bit more luck off the bat than the Dolphins have had trying to sign up players.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Jack says, when will another team be joining? And Simon's response, he reckons in 5 years' time there'll be the team in Western Australia or a second team in New Zealand. So Richie can have a team down in Wellington, maybe.
Yeah, they did kind of give a soft indication that it would be a couple of years away before they would get to 18. But they obviously don't want to say by this date. So it's going to take a few years. They need to wait till the Panthers make a whole lot more players that the Bulldogs can't sign before they can get another team in.
I don't know how I feel about a mistress team as well, Paul. I feel like I'm cheating on the Warriors. I have to stay Warriors unless the Wellington team won the comp, and then I'd be a day one Wellington fan.
Yeah,
well, we know
and
in black and yellow, so it's easy. Is there a black and yellow team in the NRL? Because the jersey's already sorted.
Well, yeah, the Warriors every now and then, you know.
Well, but that's not their proper colours. So, Mark Roberts, do you think we're going to be moving the game from Hawke's Bay area after the cyclone?
Yeah, I don't have an answer, but I am really paying attention to it because we have tickets to that game, Richie and I, where it's the game we're going to meet in the middle kind of thing and meet at the stadium. But at the moment, you can't really get there. It's May 27th.
May 27th, yeah.
Yeah, May 27th. So there is some time, but I honestly don't know. They may have to move it somewhere. I don't know where that would be if they decide. Shit, I don't know. Where's the closest to that area? It would be Rotorua, wouldn't it? In terms of the littler stadiums. Yeah. They would have to do that, or
return of the of that wonderful province where they merged Hawke's Bay and Bay of Plenty. Oh no, that was Palmerston North, wasn't it? So you could get a game in there.
You could
go to Palmy.
North, yeah.
My dad lives in Palmy, so yeah, my dad lives there, so that would give me accommodation. But it would either go to Rotorua, Palmerston North maybe, or they might just go, it's a Warriors home game, bugger it, we're taking it back to Mount Smart.
It would be, that's supposed to be the easiest. Everything's set up there. They know they don't have to try and suddenly find a whole bunch of new stewards and all that kind of stuff. And Mark, decision has to be made sooner rather than later. Yeah, it's going to be another stab, I'm afraid, for the Danny Hawke's Bay. It's just not going to be. Yeah, it's just not. So.
I'd say we'd be talking about it in our news section at the beginning of April, where it either they've decided that it's gone ahead or that they've moved it. I think they'll give themselves a month and a little bit to prepare whatever they're going to do. But yeah, it'll be interesting. And Nicholas
wants to point out, Ruin Hammer really and a bit of Hail Mary to try and get one up on you guys in the first round of the season.
I know, right? And then when we're doing our 100th, they get the coach of the Warriors to come on. It's disaster tactics here, and I apologize because I know you're going to watch this later.
And they said, look, we're all family. Yeah,
yes,
we're all a big dysfunctional family.
No, but yeah, they do a great job over there in all seriousness. So, and they have to do it at our time. Due to the time now that everyone's in New Zealand, they don't care about us, Richie. They'll make us come on a show at 11 o'clock at night, but these guys that get paid to do a job for the Warriors get a bit more better treatment and get to go on early.
Fair enough.
And yeah, Mark Roberts has said before we move on, he said if we move it, make it a fundraising event for them. Yeah, if they have to take it back to Mount Smart, you do a relief fund kind of event there for Napier as a. It's not the greatest give back, but it's better than just saying, "Well, you can't get your game anymore. Tough luck." So I'm sure the Warriors brass are thinking the next year. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I'm sure we'll see more of that. But we've got questions for ourselves too, Richie. I'll let you go first this week.
Oh, you want me to give you my question?
Yeah.
I'm just a little bit of fantasy talk, mate. Hypothetically speaking, if Roger misses out on,
you're going to the king of fantasy for your fantasy help, Doctor Fantasy.
Apparently, so he reckons he's not very good, but
no,
Roger Tuivasa-Sheck misses out in Rugby World Cup selection, announces he's returning to the Warriors. How do you fit him into the team? What does it mean for Chance?
We need a new front rower, mate. Chance can bulk up. I feel sorry for Chance. I think he's tossing and turning at night with all these things that the Warriors might get him back because he left the Warriors because he was stuck behind Roger. The first time, I think hypothetically, if Rogers does come back, he will go back to fullback, and I think Chance would be a centre. Yeah. I think that's what will happen. But yeah, Simon's also said he's heard Roger might be going to the Dolphins. My prediction on the Rowan Hammer prediction show was that the Dolphins would miss out on Roger. It would be yet another star signing they couldn't get. Mark said RTS plays on the wing, C&K plays fullback, Montoya to centre. And Simon says the Roosters maybe. I think the Roosters can't. I know there were the rumours that's where he was going to go back, but I think they don't care what we say. Everyone talks about the fact that they don't have a salary cap, and they keep buying players, so they don't really care at all. So if they want him, they'll get him. He'll be on like $200,000 a year on their books and getting like $2 million off it.
The Warriors have come out and said that that Roger won't be tied to the Warriors. He can go back to he can go back to other teams.
Yeah, they said that he's not tied, but they'd welcome him back. So it'll go. I don't know. I kind of predicted that he'd be back in the NRL in some form after the World Cup. Anyway, I feel like it's just a thing. During COVID, he wanted to get back to New Zealand. COVID's not as bad as what it was, so you can travel. I see him going back. I just don't know what you do if he comes. Yeah. I honestly don't see him coming back to the Warriors, though.
No, nor do I. That's why I sort of I said, bit of fancy talk. I actually don't think he'll come back to the Warriors, but if he did, and I don't know. I'd probably do what you said, Brad.
Yeah, and the last thing I want is to see. I love Roger. I don't want to see Roger back. Chance move to another position, and then Tane, the young little star we've got on the rise, goes elsewhere because the pathway to fullback's gone. Yeah. So it's still, for me, it's still long-term planning. It'd be great to have Roger back, but like Jacko said, he's over 30. So you're going to get him back for a year or two. Mark said sign him on a training trial. Why not? I forgot that on the news. There's rumors Dylan Napa's on a training trial with the Roosters as well. So give him a training trial. See if he's got what it takes anymore. If Union might have softened him up a bit too much.
Well, the training trial and hire his wife as $1 million a year cleaner.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, Jacko said RTS left us. Why would we get him back and cause dramas with the roster? To be honest, most of the roster is gone compared to what he was there before. But yeah, I don't see it happening. We'll this is recorded. When it does happen, we can all laugh at me saying it. But yeah, I don't think it will happen anyway. But my question for you, we've talked about them already in your question, but with all the Roosters salary cap talk, do you think the NRL should follow the NFL and NBA and have all player contracts public?
I think it could, you could go that way. I don't know whether or not there'd be any kickback with the players, and it'd be a RLPA
that's currently
situation.
That's currently what's stopping it now.
Yeah. Yes.
But
so from that point of view, I don't know whether it'd work. Also, I don't like you kind of pointed out earlier. Spencer Leniu coming in, they're losing Wadia Hargraves. I think there's always a lot of dramatic stories cooked up in Australian rugby league media, and the Roosters and their salary cap always is a fun one to go with. Whereas I think they're probably, or they should be audited to a point where they're compliant. All clubs should be. So I think a lot of the time it's nothing more than a bit of a media beat up.
Yeah. So the reason I put it this way is the NFL and NBA do it. You know exactly what everyone's getting, so they know that they're cap compliant. And I think it should be public for anything that is in that scenario. But yeah, but it is the RLPA that's stopping it. They say we don't want the players. It's their job. They shouldn't have their money publicized. But it is true. It is true that you don't really want what you're making public, but in the forum where everyone has to get paid under a certain amount of money for the thing to go, it should be public in my eyes. And then you could stop all this talk about the Roosters. Like if the Roosters have it there, and you can still cook the books even if you make it public anyway.
Yeah.
But if they've got it all out there and you go, well, that's thing. And yeah, Jacko said transparency is always good unless you want to hide something. And I think that's the biggest evidence. Well, I'll finger quote evidence about people cheating the cap is the fact that the players aren't comfortable with showing what they're earning. Because they know. Yeah, I know that we had the dramas with the Storm. Paul, that was probably before your time. But all the players are like, I didn't know that I was getting paid more. It's like, what's on your contract, and then what you're getting is different, And yeah, Mark said, how are they under the cap with all the Panthers? Yeah, it's true. They're getting the same. Magic. They're getting tied with the same brush right now, the Bulldogs, because he's making all these signings.
As you said, okay, I think then I'll have learned from what happened at the Storm, and I'm sure that that there is proper scrutiny behind the scenes as to what's going on. Also, if you have problems with if teams would soon know if they go and offer a player X amount and he goes, no, I'm on more than that. I'm not going to. So I think within the industry they would know pretty quickly if one of them was cheating.
They're called the Sydney Roosters.
The other side of not making it public is that it does create all this media, right? And all this discussion and chat. So do they want to keep it just purely from that point of view, just to keep interest and news stories?
True. I just want it all public. Just no secrets. Come on, guys. But yeah, so that's all I had there. So that's great for all the questions, guys. We'll go into Super League now. Wigan have helped me, and yeah, Jacko mentioned that Slater had 2 contracts at the Storm. Yeah, when you've got 2 contracts, something's wrong. But yeah, that's neither here or there right now. But yeah, round 2 is commenced in the Super League. Hull KR defeated Salford 24-10. Huddersfield lost to Warrington 26-16. Hull FC defeated Leeds 22-18. Wigan brought out the game of the week. They defeated Wakefield 60-0. which made up for their loss the week before for me. Catalans defeated Lee 14-6, and then St. Helens in their first game back in the UK after defeating the Panthers, defeated Castleford 24-6. Did you watch any of these games, Richie?
No, only highlights, mate. But I was being like you, we're Warriors fans in every sense, even in the Super League. So very happy to see our Wigan get a nice big scoreline like that. Not so great for Wakefield, but it's good from a Wigan point of view.
And Simon said he was impressed with St. Helens winning on Monday morning. Yeah,
they're always impressive.
Yeah, and I think they were going to hit the ground running, still buoyed from winning the World Club Challenge.
Yeah.
Jacko said, "Cheers, I'm not in Super League, so I'm off." See you, Jacko. But round 3's got some good matches coming up. They got Warrington versus Salford, Catalans versus Hull FC, Wakefield versus Uddersfield, Hull KR versus Lee, St. Helens versus Leeds, and Castleford versus Wigan. So I think St. Helens Leeds is going to be good. Simon said that Wakefield will be scared to get relegated this year because they'll get a very low grading with the new owners of the Super League. It's with that whole new system that Simon mentioned last week about how they're going to grade players. It's really imperative that you play really well this season. So be interesting times there. But anything else you wanted to add before we go, Richie?
No, not really, mate. It's a good chat as always. I can't wait to see you in a couple of days' time and then get into it.
That's very sweet of you.
I asked you earlier if you were going to bring your bush shirt, but sounds like
no.
You're not. So I'm a little bit disappointed in that.
No, as you can see by the empty bookshelf behind me, I'm currently in the process of moving house. So the bush shirt is in a box in the garage right now. So I don't think I was going to wear it anyway because I'll get more for it when I sell it as a never been worn shirt. But it has been worn once because you guys made me wear it on the show. I saw someone was trying to buy one the other day on Facebook for a lot of money. So that's my retirement fund in a couple of years, fingers crossed.
Fair enough.
We may as well sign off. We see
before 9 even. Look at that.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not even an hour. What's going on?
For the last time this season, for being under an hour, I would imagine, because we've got 8 games to talk about next week. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in tonight and joining us on the Stand Off with Brad and Richie. For your weekly update on rugby league, tune into the show next week at 8 p.m. here on Facebook or at your convenience on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and YouTube. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. And if you go into the game in Wellington and you see us, pop and say hi. We'll be there.
Come have a beer. It'll be great.
Yeah. And until next week, good night, everyone.